What's up, gang? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of The Greatness Machine, and we're going to be talking about attention management. So I had a situation, this is a few years ago. I was working with a friend of mine, mentor, and individual I met through TEDx Reno, Dandapani. He's been a former guest on the show. He's been on the show a couple of times. And Dandapani did a workshop with my team. I actually met him through TED, as I mentioned, and I was blown away by him. He was a Hindu monk. Spent his childhood in Australia and then moved to Hawaii and went to a monastery. And and he had said something really like early in his TED talk around, learning how to manage our attention and how we're not taught to do that. And it was really interesting. He ends up, we spent a lot of time when he worked with my team and we did work on, where do we put our energy, right? And this quote, like, where your attention goes, your energy flows, is something that really stuck with me. And one of the beliefs, at least his beliefs, that he was taught through Hinduism, is that our possessions actually take energy from us, right? Because we have, let's say you have a car, you got to go take care of the car. Or you have a house, it's one of your possessions, your energy, your attention to your home, right? Relationships, right? If I have a relationship and I put attention towards that relationship, then I'm going to see, my energy go there. And, one of the things that I've been playing with a lot recently is this idea of energy management. Like, how am I managing my energy? What am I doing to focus on the right things that are going to get me the right results in the right way? And so going back to this experience with Dandapani, this was probably 2015, almost 10 years ago. And, I started thinking about like all my possessions. And one of the things that he had talked about was the fact that at one point in his life, all of his possessions fit into like one box. It was like a, 15 by 15 box. He said, every single thing I owned fit into this. I have a laptop, it's like I have my shoes, he had his like, monk outfit, like cleaning supplies, like, his like, dot kit, toothbrush, stuff like that. He's like, at one point in my life, that's all I had. And you start to look at like people start collecting all these different things in their lives. They collect friendships, they collect businesses, they collect, actual assets, they can collect, you name it, people start collecting it. And you start to realize that, man, if I own all these different things, or I have all these different things, or I have all these different relationships, they're going to take my energy. And it starts to become a question of like, what am I doing to manage my energy? And I left that training. I did a training with my team and I left the training. I was like, man, I have a closet full of like clothes I don't wear, and I always walk in there and there's all this, I look at all this stuff. I'm like, I have stuff from like 10 years earlier. These shoes, I have a pair of shoes that are in my closet right now that I bought in 2002. They're like these cool grip fast, like Doc Martin type shoes. I'm like, I haven't worn those shoes. I honestly have worn those shoes once in 20 years. I'm actually keeping them for my kid though, because I think he'll like them. But they're steel-toed boots. And then I'm like, why do I have these? Like, I look at them, that split second I look at them doesn't provide me any value. But it was funny. I left that training and I was like, man, I definitely allow my attention to go towards things that are of no value for me, especially my possessions. So I got home from that training. It was in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was like, all right, I'm going to fix this. I go to my closet and within, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or an hour, I was just, any single piece of clothing I had that I'm like, if I haven't worn something in the past year, throwing it out. And I'm a person that like my weight fluctuates a lot. So I like to keep like varying degrees of clothing, whether I'm like bigger or leaner. I usually have a good 15, 20 pound swing in my weight. So I was doing that math in my head as I was going through all my possessions. It was funny. I ended up going through my closet, and I found, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 hefty sacks, big black trash bags filled with stuff I hadn't worn in the last year, I hadn't used in the past year, and threw it out. And there was this moment, like after I got doing that, where I was sitting there and I was like, like a sigh of relief. I looked at my empty closet and I was like, man, that felt good. Felt good to look at like cleanliness and simplicity and minimalism, less clutter in my brain, less things for me to think about. And it was a really interesting realization, right? Of like, where else in my life do I have closets filled with crap that I don't need? What relationships are these remnants of a previous time, or a pair of shoes in the form of a relationship that I don't wear, but they're there, right? Or something that actually gives me a negative feeling when I look at it. And I had a couple key like takeaways from that. And I think that is an experience is really an analogy for like some greater things in life. But one of my epiphanies was like, where are other parts of my life where I can create simplicity? Where are other parts of my life where I can create minimalism? And what was interesting was there was some where I could actually do it right away. And there wasn't a lot, but there was some where I was like, hey, I can create some simplicity by, not having things on 3 different phones or 3 different computers, or like, just, optimizing my technology. And that's probably not a great example. The biggest one actually was my decision on like, what are the things I want to do in my life that would potentially create complexity? And it came in a couple areas. One was I started thinking of like, there's things I want in my life. I want to, buy a second home. I want to buy a nicer car. I want to, take this bigger trip, right? It was a lot of stuff around wanting, by the way. And then I started doing this exercise where I was like, if I do any of those things, will they make my life more or less complex? Which I'm okay with more complexity if the value is so overwhelmingly positive that it pays for the complexity it's adding to my life. And you could start thinking about this in many parts of your life. Your business. If I grow my business to a certain size above where it's at, how much more complexity, how much more problems am I going to be dealing with? Because I will tell you this, like the statement, more money, more problems is a true statement, because there's more complexity normally, right? And so I started thinking about stuff like my car, right? At that point in my life, this 2015, I had like a nice, like kind of a fancier sports car that I had bought in 2005 and got rid of in 2012. And I was thinking about that car and I was like, that car was really fun to drive, especially at first. It was like a really like sporty Mercedes. And then it got to a point where I had a family, a 2-seater didn't even work. I had a baby. I lived in San Francisco. It wasn't practical. And then it was out of warranty, and anything that would happen would cost $5,000 to fix that car. And that car went from being my most prized thing I ever bought to this thing that I hated. I was like, get this out of my life, right? And I ended up selling it for like a fifth of what I bought it for, because in 2012, those cars there was a ton of them on the road, and they was out of warranty and they're expensive to fix. And that's how it goes with those types of cars. And I remember I was just like, God, that possession wasn't really worth it. So as I like went forward, I started, when I'm buying cars now, I'm like, one of my prerequisites is like, is this car going to be a pain in the ass, or is it going to make my life easier? Right? Is it going to like age out design wise, or is it going to age well? Is it expensive when I have to go get it fixed or not? Does it have a great track record of not needing to be fixed or not? Is it nice and comfortable where I'm going to ride in it and actually comfortable enough where I'm like, this is a nice car. I actually like nice interior in cars. I like cars to be super comfortable. I like them to be a little bit luxurious. And, I'm going to say this, and like, you might have no judgment, but like, I drive Volvos. My wife and I have Volvos. I have a Volvo, like, she has a station wagon. She loves station wagons. I have a Volvo SUV, and it's a nice one. It's a super nice car. But dude, the car makes my life easier. Like, it's a hybrid SUV. Like, I don't have to fill the gas up that often. Doesn't break down hardly that often. It's like the same design more or less over the last 10 years. So looks new, even though it's not brand new. But it's a really good example of something where I like intentionally was like, hey, I'm going to like buy something that's going to make my life easier because I have a nice car and like I don't have to think about it. Right. And this goes back to this quote by Dandapani, which is where, you know, your attention goes, your energy flows. And for me, like, what I've done is tried to figure out what are ways I can minimize my attention. Like, what are things that are going to make my life easier, not harder? And what I've found is, especially as people start to gather success in their life, is they start to do more stuff and buy more stuff and have more stuff. And all that stuff creates complexity in your life. And for me, the decision was very, very simple. How can I make my life easier? You know, how can there be less more? You know, how can there be more less? How can I have more space, more time to like do the things I want to do? And an easy way for me to get there was by like basically saying, I'm going to have less. If I can rent it, I'm not going to buy it, you know, unless there's a specific reason why I need to buy it. You know, it's like if it flies, floats, or there's another F word, you should rent it, right? And some people, I see them, like I have friends that like they're, you know, big ballers and they got their planes and I hear them bitch and moan about like dealing with their planes. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, no way, you know. I don't want to have the complexity of, you know, things that need a ton of my attention, you know, and that's been a cardinal rule of my existence for probably the greater part of the last, I don't know, 10 years or so. It just made my life easier. And it's one of the tests I do out of the gate when I'm going to take on a project. I'm going to add a feature to my house. I'm going to buy a possession. I'm going to take a trip. I'm going to start a project in business. Is I'm like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because my attention's going to go there, and my attention goes there, then my energy is going to go there. And it was interesting. I was doing a podcast today, and we were talking about in the podcast earlier today for Taylor Welch. It's going to come out in about 2 weeks. We're talking about time being your most valuable asset. And what was interesting was he actually said something that kind of struck me, where he said, he didn't say these words, but it was what I took from it, which is like, actually, your energy is your most valuable asset. You could have all the time in the world. If you have no energy, like, you're screwed. How's your energy? You know, do you have enough of it? Are you using it well? If your energy is your currency for vibrant life, like, how's that working for you? Right? And is my energy in the right type of energy? So again, where my attention goes, my energy flows. Do I have the right type of energy that flows in the right direction? Is that attention that I'm giving to the thing creating negative energy for me? Right? And this was kind of a level up. I hadn't heard someone say that quote. I hadn't heard someone use that example before of energy being your most valuable asset. But I think it's a combination of like time times energy equals, you know, your outcome, right? And if it's if it's negative energy, you're gonna have a negative outcome. If it's positive energy, you're gonna have a positive outcome, right? But if I have no time and good energy, you know, then I'm okay, but I'm like not being able to use it effectively. If I have tons of time and bad energy, you know, time energy is gonna be, you're gonna get a zero, you know, on that. If my energy is zero and I got a ton of time, I'm still a zero. If my energy's high and my time's high, woo, then I got a lot to give. I got a lot to do. I got a lot of space to like go create in. And it's something that, I mean, I'm actually like coming up with this as I'm saying this. Like, it was like weird. I've never thought of that formula before. Times the, you know, the time I have times the energy that I have equals like, how do I feel? You know, I'm feeling good or not. And so again, being thoughtful about where my attention is and where I'm giving it to, that's kind of an exercise that I encourage you to start thinking about. Go down the list of your possessions that suck up some of your time, right? Your home, your car, your friends, your relationships, your job, your business, your pets, you know, go down the list. You know, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And is that worth that energy give? And if it's a no, then what I encourage you to do is start rethinking, like giving any of that attention up, any of that energy up in that area. And it's real easy. I think this is where we have to start listening to our bodies and like ask ourselves the question of like, hey, like, do I feel good when I'm doing this? Do I feel medium, but the attention management and energy management's high? That's a no. Do I feel good? The attention and energy's low? Dude, do more of that. Do I feel good and the attention's, you know, like high and the energy's low? Okay, do more of that. You know, start thinking to yourself, how can I get like, and the maximums when energy's high, attention's high, time is high, attention, you know, energy's high, activity's high, everything's good. You're like, dude, go do as much of that as you possibly can, but it's where I'm there. I'm like, my energy's low, time is high, energy low, attention high. Yuck. Run away from that. Right. So it's this energy, attention, time formula where you just got to think to yourself, hey, like, how am I spending it? And I think one of the easiest ways, an invisible way, is to start to look at your possessions. And Dandapani was very helpful for me to hear him talk about possessions in that way, because I just had never thought of it before. I'm like, oh, I own this thing. And he used the example. The example I really liked was, he used the example of a set of Ferrari keys. And he said, like, if you have a Ferrari, it could be a good or a bad thing. He said, if I took your Ferrari keys and flushed them down the toilet, and would you care? And the answer was you would. Then a lot of attention, a lot of energy is going to go towards that. And it may not be worth it, like that you're going to get so worked up about the possession. Vice versa, if I have that possession and I don't care about it and I let it go to crap, then that's not a good possession either. Right. So just having a thoughtfulness around, like, how do my possessions control my life? I'll use an example. I was thinking about my wife and I, we got into using saunas. And I love saunas. I'm going to go to the gym right after this podcast. I always go to the sauna when I'm in the gym. It's like it's part of my ritual. So I was like, man, I use the sauna a lot. I think I might get like an outdoor sauna for my house. So I like researched it. There's a company out of like Muskoka, Canada, near Ontario, Canada, and they have they make these outdoor saunas. They're like beautiful old school saunas. And I researched it. I shopped it. I literally almost pulled the trigger on it. And then the last minute, I was like, man, all right, what do I got to do for this sauna? I'm like, okay, I got to go get a cement pad laid. I got to go get electrical brought in. I got to, build the thing. I got to find someone that's going to build it, because they don't deliver a built thing. You got to build it on site. So I'm like, doing the math. I'm like, all right, I got to pay for this thing. I got to pay for all that stuff. So, okay, fine. It's financially going to cost me something. Then I started like asking questions like, well, how long does it take to heat up? And then what's the cleaning process look like? How do I maintain it? Right. And it was interesting. We're like, oh, you got to make sure you do this and you got to do that. And it was like, it ended up being a bunch of work, honestly. And so I'll tell you what, I was 50-50. I still am 50-50 because I have to go to the gym anytime I want to use it. And I was like, man, I'd probably use it every day if it was here. But one of the tests I did said, well, I live in Texas, in Austin. It was hot in the summer. I'm like, how often do I use the sauna in the summer? It turned out I didn't use it that much. It was too hot. And by the way, the summer's like 6 months here, like summer hot weather. It's like starts in June and goes through October. So I was like, well, that's not 6 months, Darius. It's like 5 months. But, 4 or 5 months of like scorching hot weather. And I was like, do I actually use the sun when it's scorching hot outside? The answer was I didn't. I was like, it's too hot. I don't want more heat. I'm already have enough heat. I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to lose like 5/12 of my utility. So it's useful the other months, but that month it wasn't. And so I talked myself out of it, at least temporarily. As of this moment, I don't own one. But I did that exercise. I ran through the process of like, I want this thing because I just want to be able to have the ease of going outside, to like walk outside my bedroom door and there's this outdoor thing and beautiful nature, and I go sit out there and I get hot and sweat and I'm done, right? And then I was like, I did the math though. I'm like, it's not as easy as that. Getting it set up, fine. The setup I'm okay with. The cost of setting up, fine. I'm okay with that. It was actually the ongoing maintenance of a structure outside my house that I got to clean, I got to maintain. It might break down. I got to buy replacement crap. And then the question is how much better is that than me just going and getting my car and driving for 12 minutes? And truthfully, I'm like 50-50 at this point. I might still do it. It's been over a year since I thought about doing it. And a lot of you might be thinking that I'm silly and like that I'm overthinking this, but it's not. I do this every single time, by the way. I do this every single time I'm thinking about taking on a possession or a project or anything. Because I'm like, is this going to create more work for me? Because I want less in my life. I want more simplicity. I want my attention to be focused on the things that really matter, which is not maintaining, or even, let's say I'm not even the one maintaining it. Let's say I have someone that comes to my house and manages it. I don't want to manage that person. I don't want to even think about the service. For me, I think of all those little things because I realize that every little thing I do adds up. It's not just that one possession. It's many possessions I'm going to be dealing with, right? So I encourage you to start thinking through, like, before you take on projects or possessions, knowing that where your attention goes, your energy flows, that you may be putting yourself in a position where you're sucking your energy in areas that are not really where you want to be spending your time. And for me, I think it was a gift that in my mid-30s, I realized that thank you, Dandapani, but I realized that that's something I need to be thoughtful of, I need to be cognitive of. And so I encourage you, as you start to think on your journey, where do you want to spend your attention? Where do you want to spend your time? And if the time spent times the energy, times your attention and energy equals your outcomes, you're going to want to really make sure that you create as much time as you can, spending them doing things that you have high energy and high attention towards. So with that said, hope you enjoyed today's episode. I wanted to share that thought with you. Till next time, peace out. Love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.